deep in the dense evergreen wilderness of northern Maine, fog hangs low over the pines and roads disappear into dark, endless woods. The people of Coldwater Township have lived with a secret that outsiders always mistake for superstition. It started decades ago, long before cell phones or GPS or any easy way to call for help. When locals began whispering about a woman the older generations called the Hollow Witch, a figure who didn't belong to the world of ghosts or legends, but to something older, something rooted deep in the land itself. When I traveled there to investigate the stories for a documentary series, I expected the usual folklore campfire tales, exaggerated sightings, maybe a creepy abandoned cabin. But the moment I entered Coldwater, something felt wrong. People looked at me with a quiet, heavy dread, warning me not to walk into the woods alone, not to follow voices, and not to stay out past dusk. At first, I thought it was a quirky local superstition until I met an elderly man named Russell Crane, whose trembling hands and pale eyes told a story far more disturbing than anything I expected. Russell said the witch did not appear in shadows or storms or rituals. She appeared when the forest went silent, when even the wind seemed afraid. He described one autumn night when he heard his wife calling for him from deep inside the woods, begging for help, her voice shaking with fear. The problem, he said, was that his wife had been dead for 7 years. Yet the voice was perfect. Absolutely perfect, her tone, her inflection, even the way she said his name when she was frightened. Against every instinct, he followed the voice deeper, his flashlight cutting through thick fog until the beam landed on a tall figure crouched by a tree, long hair dragging across the ground like wet rope. It slowly lifted its head, revealing a face that looked almost human but stretched too thin, as though it had been molded from memory. When it spoke again, using his wife's voice, it smiled with a mouth that didn't understand how human expressions worked. Russell ran until he fell, and when he looked back, the forest behind him was crawling with silhouettes dying, bending, shaking shapes that watched him with hungry patience. He escaped, but he said the witch did not chase. She simply learned him, memorized him, as if preparing to use his voice someday. A middle-aged woman named Jenna told me the witch didn't always appear physically. Sometimes she slipped into your life through soft humming that drifted across porches at night, tapping on windows in perfect patterns from memories no outsider could know. Jenna said the witch followed her 4 weeks after her brother disappeared near Hollow Bend, a wooded trail the locals refused to map because the trees, Dante, stay where you leave them. She described hearing whispers on her roof, footsteps pacing outside her bedroom door, and shadows that lingered too long behind curtains. One night, Jenna heard her brother's voice calling from the backyard, begging her to open the door. She almost did, but something felt wrong. His voice was too level, too calm, repeating the same sentence without breathing. When she looked through the peephole, she didn't see her brother. She saw something much taller, standing perfectly still, its arms hanging far too low, its head tilted at an unnatural angle as it repeated her brother's plea through a distorted echo. This. Later, Jenna found strange symbols carved into the trees behind her house circles, intersecting with claw-like marks on, she swore. The carvings appeared overnight because the night before, those same trees weren't even there. 2 hunters, Mason and Tom, told me about discovering an abandoned cabin deep inside the woods, a place they swore hadn't existed the week before. The cabin was filled with dolls carved from wood, each disturbingly detailed. Some had human hair woven through their tiny heads. Others had faces eerily similar to people from town. One doll had the sheriff's missing daughter's freckles. Another had Mason's own childhood smile. When they tried to leave, the woods around them shifted. Paths they used 100 times twisted into unfamiliar trails. The forest grew thicker, the air colder, the shadows longer. Then came the humming, soft, rhythmic, rising and falling like a lullaby. Mason said something moved behind them, not walking but gliding over the forest floor. When they finally reached their truck at dawn, the hood was covered in muddy handprints, small ones, large ones, some with fingers too long to belong to any human. Tom claimed he heard someone whisper inside the truck bed during the entire drive home, matching his own voice word for word. Even the sheriff, a hardened man named Donovan Pike, eventually admitted the town had been hiding the truth for years. He told me the witch was not a ghost, or a person, or even a spirit. She was an unintelligent ancient mimic that used memories as traps. She learned people, studied them, hunted them by becoming the one thing they could never ignore. Donovan said he once responded to a missing child call near Hollow Bend. When he arrived, he found small footprints leading into the woods. He followed them until he heard the child crying for help, but when he reached a clearing, he saw the child standing there too still, its arms dangling, its head twitching jerkily like a puppet, learning how to move. He said the forest suddenly filled with other voices, his own father, his late wife, his childhood friends all crying for help simultaneously. He fired his gun into the air and ran. And even as he reached his patrol car, he heard something whispering in his ear from inches away, though nothing stood behind him. By the time I gathered enough stories to piece together the truth, my nights in Coldwater had already become restless. The Airbnb near the woods felt colder than it should. The floor creaked like someone was walking long after midnight, and once, while reviewing audio recordings, I heard something breathing softly behind my voice, something slow, heavy, patient. On my final night, I heard a gentle knock on the door, followed by a familiar voice, a voice primera identity heard since I was a kid calling me by a nickname only my mother used. But my mother has been gone for years. The voice repeated the name, perfectly mimicked, but something was off. The timing, the tone, like someone practicing until they got it right. When I refused to open the door, the voice shifted first, sounding younger, then older, then deeper. As if scrolling through every memory I'd ever stored. The doorknob shook once, gently, then everything went quiet. In the silence, I heard the faintest humming drifting from the woods. The same humming every villager mentioned. A sound that somehow felt like it knew me. And now, even after leaving Coldwater, the humming hasn't stopped. Some nights it comes through vents, sometimes through walls, sometimes from behind me when I'm alone, like something miles away is still learning my voice. Waiting for the moment it sounds perfect enough to call me home.